The super yacht Liberty of the Seas glided across the Atlantic Ocean like a brightly lit floating city, leaving behind the Miami skyline that was gradually fading into the night. Tonight was Captain's Night, the most extravagant event of the cruise, where sleek black tuxedos and shimmering sequined evening gowns were the norm. In the grand atrium, the air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume, the clinking of crystal glasses, and the soothing jazz melodies from the live band. Giant crystal chandeliers illuminated the marble floor, reflecting the opulence enjoyed by over 3,000 passengers on their dream vacation. Mike, a seasoned security officer with a neat buzz cut, was patrolling along the edge of the ballroom. Beside him was Titan, a German shepherd, police dog with a glossy black and tan coat. Titan was no pet. He was a living weapon, a four-legged partner with a K-9 badge fixed to his tight-fitting black tactical vest. Shoulders back, Titan. Everyone's watching, Mike whispered, lightly holding the leather leash. Titan walked with his usual majesty, ears erect, his amber eyes scanning the crowd with cold vigilance. He was trained to ignore the smells of food, the noise, and the chaos of the masses. His mission was to detect explosives, narcotics, or security threats. For Mike and Titan, tonight was just another routine shift. The sea was calm, the passengers were happy, and the threat level was virtually zero. But that tranquility was a fragile veneer before the true storm hit, not from the sky, but from this very luxurious hallway. Exactly at 8:15 p.m., as the band began a slow ballad, Titan abruptly stopped. The dog's sudden halt almost made Mike lose his balance. "Come on, boy," he tugged gently on the leash, thinking Titan was distracted by someone dropping food. But Titan didn't budge. His entire body stiffened like a bronze statue. His massive head tilted slightly, nostrils constantly flaring, intensely inhaling the cold air stream from the central air conditioning system blowing through the hallway. The fur on Titan's hackles stood up, a sign Mike knew too well, the sign of extreme alert. "What is it?" Mike lowered his stance, his right hand instinctively moving to the taser holster on his hip. Titan didn't answer with a look. Instead, a deep, resonant growl emanated from his chest, a sound so threatening that it startled a nearby couple, causing them to drop a glass of red wine onto the floor. Smash! The sound of breaking glass was like a signal shot. Titan let out a sharp, concise bark, then, without any command, he lunged forward. The tremendous pull from the over 40 kilograms animal made Mike stagger, his heels skidding on the polished stone floor. "Titan, stay!" Mike shouted, trying to brace the leash with both hands. But his command, one Titan had always obeyed absolutely for the past 5 years, was now utterly meaningless. The dog shot forward like an arrow released from a bow, breaking formation, tearing through the dancing crowd. He wasn't attacking anyone, but the speed and ferocity of his run caused mass panic. Ladies screamed, scattering to the sides, creating a chaotic pathway in the opulent ballroom. Titan leaped over a service cart, overturning a tower of champagne glasses, creating an unprecedented scene of disorder. "Security, stop that dog!" A voice yelled over the radio, but Mike ignored procedure. He knew Titan. This dog never went crazy for no reason. He was chasing something, or saving something. Mike sprinted after Titan, his heart pounding in his chest. The dog charged straight for the elevator area, but instead of waiting for the doors to open, he swerved left, ramming his head hard against the heavy red-signed emergency exit door. "Staff only, no entry." The door burst open. The warm, inviting light and the soft music of the ballroom were instantly severed, replaced by the cold, white light of fluorescent bulbs and the low, droning hum of industrial ventilation. They had entered the guts of the ship. Titan bolted down the narrow steel staircase, his claws scraping on the metal, creating a chilling sound. Mike practically had to slide after him, gripping the railing to avoid tumbling down. "Titan, slow down. What the hell are you doing?" Mike gasped, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead. They descended one deck, then two. The air grew heavy, damp, and reeked of machine oil mixed with the salty smell of the sea. This was Zone C, the engineering deck deep below sea level, housing auxiliary engines, cold storage, and the waste disposal system. No passenger was ever allowed down here. An unnerving emptiness dominated the long, stark corridor, broken only by the rapid footsteps of one man and one dog. Titan pulled Mike along the hallway, past the intricate network of heat pipes on the ceiling. The animal's eyes no longer held the calm demeanor of AK-9 warrior. His pupils were dilated, his breathing ragged, his tongue lolling out, and his whole body was shaking with frantic urgency. He seemed to be racing against death. Finally, Titan slid to a stop right in front of a massive steel door at the end of the blind corridor. The door was marked with bold black letters, Cold Storage 3C, Reserve Freezer No. Entry. As soon as he stopped, Titan reared his front paws onto the door, frantically scratching at the cold gray paint. The sharp sound of his claws gouging the metal, screech sent a shiver down Mike's spine. Titan, enough! Mike roared, his voice echoing in the narrow hallway. He grabbed Titan's collar, using all his strength to yank him backward. This place has been sealed since we left port. No one is in here. What is wrong with you? To a security officer, Titan's action was illogical. Cold Storage 3C was a reserve stockroom, only open when the main food supply ran out, usually on the last day of the cruise. The alarm sensors had never been activated, and hallway cameras hadn't recorded any movement in the last 48 hours. But Titan didn't care about logic. Pulled away by Mike, he turned back, baring his fangs and growling at his own handler. It was the first time Mike had ever seen Titan show his teeth to him. But immediately, the aggression vanished, replaced by a long, mournful, and heartbreaking howl that caused goosebumps to erupt on Mike's arms. He wasn't attacking Mike. He was pleading with him. Titan rushed back to the door, but this time he didn't scratch. He flattened himself onto the cold concrete floor, pressing his nose and ear against the tiny, millimeter-thin gap between the doors, edge, and the floor. He whined softly, his tail thumping against Mike's leg as if urging him. The dog's desperation and resolve shattered Mike's rigidity. He loosened his grip on the leash. A terrifying silence descended, broken only by the distant, low roar of the ship's engines and the sound of waves crashing against the hull outside the steel shell. Mike knelt beside Titan. All right. Is something in there? He pressed his ear against the 10 centimeters thick steel door. Ice cold. At first, he heard nothing but the low whoosh of air displacement. He was about to stand up, thinking Titan might be sick or overreacting to the smell of a dead rat. But then, Titan let out a small bark, nudging Mike's arm with his nose as if to say, "Listen closely." Mike held his breath, closing his eyes to focus his hearing. And then he heard it. Top, top. An extremely faint sound. Not clanging machinery. Not scurrying rats. It had a rhythm. Weak, intermittent, like someone using the last of their strength to tap a finger on the metal from the other side. The blood in Mike's veins seemed to freeze. Cold Storage 3C was an industrial freezer, designed to be airtight and perfectly insulated to maintain sub-zero temperatures. If any sound, no matter how faint, was leaking out, the person inside had to be very close to the door. And more importantly, if it was airtight, the oxygen supply inside was finite. "Oh God," Mike whispered, his face drained of color. He sprang up, his hands trembling as he snatched the radio from his shoulder, shouting in a voice distorted by panic, completely breaking the rule of officer calm. "Code red. I repeat, code red at Cold Storage 3C engineering deck. Possible person trapped. Request medical and rescue team immediately. Bring oxygen tanks. Urgent." As soon as he finished, Mike pulled the high-level security key card from his breast pocket. His hand shook so badly he almost dropped the card. He swiped it hard across the electronic reader mounted on the wall. Beep, beep, beep. An error tone sounded. The LED on the lock flashed red. "Damn it. Open up." Mike swore. Swiping again. The security system seemed to be malfunctioning due to the high humidity in the area or the ship entering a patch of turbulent water. Titan seemed to sense the stalemate. He stood up, barking in rapid succession at the electronic lock, his barks echoing like sledgehammer blows. The third time, Mike held the card tight, pressed it against the reader, and held it still for 2 seconds. Chirp! The light turned green. The heavy steel bolt inside the door shuddered into movement. Clank! Clank! Hiss! Mike grabbed the icy metal handle, putting all his body weight into, twisting the latch and pulling the door wide open. A dense white mist rushed out from inside, bringing with it the bone-chilling cold of -20 degrees Celsius, hitting Mike's face and forcing him to squint. Inside was a thick, abyss-like darkness. Before Mike's eyes could adapt to the darkness, Titan shot into the white mist. He was fearless, unwavering, plunging straight into the deadly cold as if he knew exactly where he needed to go. Mike pulled out his tactical flashlight, switched it to the highest setting, and shone it inside. The beam cut through the cold vapor, illuminating towering shelves stacked with frozen cardboard boxes. "Is anyone here?" Mike yelled, his voice trembling in the frigid haze. There was no reply, only Titan's whimper echoing from the deepest corner of the storage room. Mike ran in Titan's direction, his flashlight beam dancing wildly over the snow-covered, frozen walls. In the very last corner of the room, between 2 large, leaning cargo crates that formed a small alcove, Titan was lying there. But he wasn't standing. He was lying prone, stretching his large, warm body over a tiny object huddled on the metal floor. When Mike got closer and shone his light on it, his heart stopped. It wasn't an engineer. It wasn't an adult. Under Titan's belly, sheltered by the dog's thick fur, was a little boy. He was wearing flimsy, superhero-printed pajamas, his bare feet purple with cold. His face had turned a pale blue, his eyes were closed, and his chest barely moved. Frost had begun to settle on the child's eyelashes. The boy lay there, motionless, small and heartbreakingly fragile in the brutal cold of the death chamber. Mike collapsed to his knees, his trembling hand reaching for the boy's neck to check for a pulse, while Titan looked up at him, his eyes swimming with tears and his warm tongue tirelessly licking the boy's cheek, trying to awaken a life that was slowly fading. Time seemed to stand still in the moment Mike knelt on the freezing metal floor of cold storage 3C. The cold here was not like the cold of a natural winter. It was an artificial pressure, dry and cruel, designed to preserve frozen meat, not to sustain human life. The flashlight beam in Mike's shaking hand swept across the small body curled under Titan's belly. It was a boy, perhaps 5 years old, wearing thin pajamas printed with cheerful astronauts. Heartbreaking contrast to his current situation. The boy's skin was no longer the rosy hue of childhood, but had turned a pale, gray-blue, the color of life being drained away. On his long, curved eyelashes, tiny ice crystals had begun to form, glinting eerily in the light. "No, impossible," Mike whispered, his voice cracking, mingling with the breath that instantly turned into white smoke upon leaving his mouth. Titan hadn't moved from his position. The large German shepherd, known for his ferocity in tracking criminals, was now strangely gentle. He was performing the most ancient, primal act of the wolf species, sharing body heat. Titan was lying directly on the boy's chest and abdomen, the most vital organs needing warmth. He wasn't just lying still. Mike noticed Titan's muscles were visibly shivering. The dog was deliberately trembling to generate heat, transmitting it directly through his thick coat to the child's cold body. Titan's warm tongue continually licked the boy's cheek, ear, and small, clenched hand. It wasn't mere affection. It was Titan's way of trying to stimulate blood circulation, trying to elicit a response from the immobile body. Each lick was a desperate call. "Wake up! Don't sleep anymore!" Mike snapped out his shock. He tossed the flashlight aside, letting it roll on the floor, casting a slanted light across the room. He removed his tactical gloves, pressing his rough fingers against the boy's neck to find the carotid pulse. Cold, freezing. The boy's skin was stiff like marble. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, nothing. Mike held his breath, pressing a little harder, praying to all the gods he knew. And then, an extremely slight flutter passed under his fingertip. Faint, slow, and fragile like a butterfly in a storm, but it was there. The child's heart was still beating. A sporadic, tenacious rhythm fighting against death. He's alive. Titan, he's alive. Mike shouted, though only the dog could hear him. Immediately, he slid his arms under the boy's back. Sorry, Titan, move aside. We have to get him out of here. Titan understood, taking a step back but remaining close to Mike's side, his eyes never leaving the child for a second. Mike lifted the boy. His body was feather-light but rigid. He spun around, running frantically toward the exit door, where the hallway light streamed in like the only way out. As soon as they exited the cold storage, the sudden temperature change felt like the air around Mike exploded. The humidity from the hallway clashed with the frigid air escaping the freezer, creating a dense mist that enveloped them. Code red. I have a victim. Mike yelled into the radio on his shoulder, running while tearing off his thick security uniform jacket to wrap around the boy. Engineering, Deck C. Need a resuscitation team right now. Victim is a child, grade 3 hypothermia, pulse very weak. Heavy footsteps echoed from the steel staircase. The Liberty of the Seas rapid response team had arrived. Leading them was Dr. Evans, the ship's head physician, a stern-faced middle-aged woman, followed by 2 male nurses, pushing a stretcher and resuscitation equipment. Put the boy down here, right on the floor. Dr. Evans ordered decisively. She didn't want to waste time moving to the infirmary when every second was precious. Mike placed the boy on the rubber-matted hallway floor. Titan immediately pushed his way in. A nurse tried to push the dog away, fearing it would interfere, but Titan let out a low growl. Not of threat, but of protective assertion. He weaved past the nurse's legs, flopping down right next to the boy's head, continuing to lick his cold forehead. Leave him be, Mike gasped, stopping the nurse. He found the boy. He's keeping him warm. Dr. Evans paid no attention to the dog. She focused all her energy on the small patient. She quickly cut away the boy's damn pajamas. Cannot get a blood pressure reading. Body temperature. Oh my God, 28 degrees Celsius. Heartbeat is erratic. Prepare for defibrillation if the heart stops. Epinephrine injection. Get the thermal blankets over here fast. The previously deserted engineering hallway instantly transformed into a chaotic but professional field emergency room. The sound of tearing medical packaging, the frantic beeping of the monitor, and the doctor's concise orders mingled with the low rumble of the ship's engine. Amidst the chaos, another sound pierced the air from the direction of the stairs, the heart-wrenching shriek of a woman. Lau! Oh God, Elio! It was Sarah, the boy's mother. She ran barefoot on the metal floor, her hair disheveled, her elegant evening gown now askew. She had been searching for her son for 2 hours, from the children's pool to the play area, and when she heard the code-red announcement over the loudspeaker, a mother's instinct told her to run. Down here, seeing her son lying motionless, skin blue-gray, surrounded by medical equipment and tangled wires, Sarah nearly collapsed. She rushed forward but was restrained by Mike. You can't go in there right now, ma'am. They are performing emergency resuscitation, Mike said, his voice trying to remain calm but also trembling. He felt the mother's body shaking uncontrollably. In his hands, the pain transmitting through every muscle fiber. That's my son. Lau, Leo, wake up. Sarah wailed, her cries echoing in the narrow hallway, piercing the hearts of all the tough men present. She struggled, wanting to touch her precious child whom she thought was forever lost to the ocean. In the emergency area, the situation was becoming extremely tense. Pulses dropping. We're losing him, a nurse shouted. On the monitor screen, the heart rhythm line began to flatten out. The long tie-it sound indicating cardiac arrest rang out, the most haunting sound for any medical personnel. Cardiac arrest. Start chest compressions. Dr. Evans yelled, sweat pouring down her forehead. She clasped her hands together and placed them on Leo's tiny chest, starting. Rhythmic, powerful compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, boy, don't give up. Sarah let out a cry of agony and collapsed to the floor, sobbing into her hands. Mike turned away. He couldn't bear to watch. He had witnessed many accidents, but seeing a child slip away right before his eyes was too much to endure. But Titan would not accept it. Just as the cardiac arrest alarm sounded, the dog suddenly leaped up. He let out a resounding bark that drowned out the surrounding noise. Titan forcefully nudged his wet nose against Leo's neck, right beneath the doctor's hands performing compressions, then let out a long sequence of mournful whimpers, yet full of power. He rubbed his thick fur against the boy's hand, against his cheek, as if trying to transmit all his life force to his little friend. Inject another dose of AP. Charge the defibrillator to 100 joules. Dr. Evans ordered, her face glistening with sweat. Clear. Shocking. Leo's small body jerked after the electrical shock. Silence. The entire hallway held its breath. Only the low, whirring sound of the machine recharging. 1 second passed. 2 seconds. Titan's ears suddenly perked up. He stopped whimpering. His tail lightly thumped the floor once. Beep. A small green light flashed on the screen. Beep, beep. Dr. Evans let out a long sigh, her shoulders slumping. We have a pulse again. Sinus rhythm is returning. Blood pressure is going up. Thank God, the nurse whispered, wiping sweat from her brow. Leo's body began to react. A weak, choking cough broke from his chest. His eyes fluttered open a fraction and then closed again from exhaustion. But his skin was starting to regain some pink color thanks to the thermal blanket and medication. Sarah tore herself away from Mike's grasp, rushing to her son's side. This time, no one stopped her. She knelt down, gripping her son's tiny hand, kissing it repeatedly, her tears mixing with the thermal blanket. Lau, Mommy's here. I'm so sorry. Leo couldn't reply, but he subtly moved his fingers. And the miracle was the tiny hand didn't search for his mother's hand. It unconsciously fumbled in the air until it touched Titan's soft fur. Titan lowered his head, gently licking the hand one more time, then lay down submissively next to the stretcher, letting out a long sigh of relief. His amber eyes looked at Sarah, shining with a strange gentleness and understanding, as if to say, I kept my promise. The boy is safe. We need to transfer the boy to the intensive care unit, ICU, immediately, Dr. Evans ordered, breaking the emotional moment. His condition is still critical. We need to warm his blood and monitor his lungs. The medical team quickly lifted the stretcher, pushing Leo toward the elevator. Sarah ran closely beside him, her hand never leaving her son's. As the stretcher passed Mike, he stood at attention, raising his hand in a military salute, a gesture of respect for the boy's resilience. And as Titan lumbered along behind the group, still maintaining his position as the guard behind the stretcher, Mike bent down, patting the dog firmly on the shoulder. Good job, partner. You're a hero, Mike whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Titan turned back to look at his owner for a second, wagged his tail lightly, then continued his duty. He wouldn't leave Leo until the boy was fully awake. That was the law of the pack. Once someone is saved, they become a part of the pack. The hallway returned to its emptiness, leaving only Mike standing before the wide-open cold storage door. The cold air still wafted out eerily. He looked at the modern electronic lock, at the no entry sign, and a chilling question began to creep into his mind, overshadowing the joy of the rescue. This door was designed to automatically lock tightly and could only be opened with a high-level security key card or the store manager's code. Leo was only 5 years old. He couldn't reach the control panel, much less have a key card. And if he accidentally wandered in when someone was opening the door, why did no one see him? Why didn't the hallway camera record anyone coming down here in the last 48 hours? Mike walked closer to the door, shining his flashlight onto the internal bolt mechanism. His eyes narrowed. There was a fresh scratch on the metal, and a small piece of black plastic was jammed in the door jamb, a sign that the bolt had been tampered with to prevent it from locking completely for a period of time before slamming shut permanently. Did someone intentionally leave the door ajar? Or worse, did someone bring Leo down here? The cold shiver running down Mike's spine didn't come from the cold storage, but from a terrifying premonition. This incident was not just an accident. Central Security, this is Mike, he said into the radio, his voice sharp, completely different from his earlier emotional. Done. I need a full video extraction of the cargo elevator area on Deck 3 for the past 4 hours. And call the captain. Immediately. We have a crime scene. 2 a.m. The storm outside had begun to weaken, leaving the sea with long, gentler waves. But inside the Liberty of the Seas Intensive Care Unit, ICU, no one was sleeping. Leo, the 5-year-old boy who had just returned from the brink of death, was lying peacefully in a crisp, white hospital bed, surrounded by specialized warming equipment. His breathing had become steady again, his cheeks starting to blush, a sign of life being strongly revived. Sarah sat by his bedside, tightly holding her son's small hand, her eyes swollen from crying but shining with ultimate happiness. In the corner of the room, Titan was curled up on a wool rug that the nurses had laid out just for him. The dog was exhausted from his sprint and the continuous heat transfer process, but his ears still occasionally twitched. Whenever Leo's heart monitor emitted an unusual beep, the ICU door opened. Officer Mike entered with Captain Anderson and Chief Physician Evans. The atmosphere in the room softened. "How is the boy?" Mike asked quietly. "A miracle." Dr. Evans took off her glasses, rubbing the bridge of her nose. "His lungs are clear, body temperature stable at 36 degrees. I must reiterate, if Titan hadn't found him and warmed him, even if we had arrived just 15 minutes later with a depleted oxygen supply in that airtight freezer, that small heart would have stopped permanently. No machine could have saved him." Sarah turned around, looking at Mike, and then down at the dozing Titan. "Officer, have you found the cause? Why was my son there? Did someone—" She left the sentence unfinished, the fear of a kidnapping still haunting her. Mike nodded, his face serious but less strained than a few hours before. He took out a tablet, opening the video footage extracted from the security camera that he had spent the last hour analyzing. "No one kidnapped Leo, ma'am. It was a chain of unfortunate coincidences, but also incredibly dangerous," Mike explained, his finger sweeping across the screen. The black and white video showed Leo playing alone in the upper deck hallway with a small red rubber ball. The ball bounced hard, flew over the railing, and fell down the staircase leading to the engineering deck, where the separating door had been carelessly left ajar by a service staff member pushing a cart through a few minutes earlier. Leo ran after the ball. Mike pointed at the screen. The boy went down to the engineering deck. The cold storage 3C door was faulty today due to thick ice buildup on the edge, preventing it from latching completely. Lau, curious, pushed the door open to look for his ball. Just at that moment, the ship banked sharply due to a large wave. Gravity caused the heavy steel door, weighing hundreds of pounds, to slam shut. The strong impact automatically activated the bolt lock, sealing the boy inside. Mike sighed, putting the tablet away. It was an isolated accident. The internal sensors in the freezer were damaged by humidity, so they didn't alarm the central system. No one knew the boy was there. No one, except Titan. All eyes turned to the dog. Titan seemed to sense he was being talked about. He lifted his head, gave a long yawn, and lightly wagged his tail. Captain Anderson stepped forward, kneeling on one knee in front of the dog, placing his hand on its large head. "I've been sailing for 30 years, owning the most sophisticated, multi-million-dollar radar systems. But tonight, all that technology was defeated by a wet nose and a loyal heart. Thank you, my friend." The next morning, as the bright sun shone down on the deck of the Liberty of the Seas, a special announcement blared over the ship's loudspeaker system. The captain invited all passengers to gather in the grand atrium. Thousands of passengers flocked to the main hall. Rumors of the rescue the previous night had spread like wildfire. People whispered, curious and eager. When the transparent glass elevator doors opened, Mike stepped out, his uniform impeccable. Beside him, Titan walked with dignity, his coat brushed glossy, wearing a wreath of purple orchids around his neck as a mark of honor. The vast hall suddenly fell silent. Then, from one corner, applause erupted. Initially scattered, it spread like a wave, finally exploding in a thunderous, unending applause. Cries of "Bravo! Hero!" echoed throughout the five-story space. Many people shed tears. They weren't just applauding a dog. They were applauding life, a miracle. Sarah carried Leo, now awake though still a bit weak, toward the stage. Little Leo smiled widely when he saw his big friend. He slipped out of his mother's arms, toddling over to embrace Titan's neck. Instead of maintaining the stern demeanor of a police dog, Titan lowered his head, allowing the boy to hug him, and gently licked his cheek as a morning greeting. That moment was captured by hundreds of phones, a symbolic image of the boundless love between humans and animals. Mike stood there, watching his partner immersed in the passenger's embrace. He smiled, reflecting on what had happened. In a modern world full of machines and impersonal technology, sometimes the only thing that can save us is the most primal instinct: love, loyalty, and the intuition of a four-legged friend. Titan didn't know he was a hero. He didn't need a medal or the applause. To him, the greatest reward was simply the steady heartbeat in Leo's chest and Mike's proud pat on the shoulder. The story of Titan and the spectacular rescue on the Liberty of the Seas has concluded, but its resonance will surely last forever. Do you believe dogs possess a sixth sense to protect humans? Or have you witnessed a dog do something extraordinary? If this story touched your heart, don't hesitate to press like, leave a comment, love Titan, and share this video to spread warmth and courage to more people.